Giro here for Umbra Games with a review of 2015's Need for Speed, played on PlayStation 4 but also available on Xbox One and PC using Origin. While not exactly a reused title, since the first Need for Speed released in 1994 was technically The Need for Speed, they dropped "the" from every game forward, and this one doesn't have a subtitle, thus kind of feeling that for some reason, without reused characters or themes from game to game other than cars, a reboot I believe they were aiming for feels a little unnecessary. Especially because this online open-world racing game plays very similarly to 2013's Need for Speed rivals. A newbie in the town of Ventura Bay where the streets are forever wet, and it must be located in Alaska because daytime only lasts a fleeting moment, you join a tough-talking, skilled group of street racers in order to help them rise to the top of fame and popularity across the city. Each member issues you challenges that make up the game's 99 events that include circuit lap racing, races from point A to point B, events to set the fastest lap, and variations on style competitions employing the use of drifting. Each event you complete nets you reputation and money, the former opening new events and giving you access to new car parts, and the latter giving you cash to obtain those parts, buy new cars, and pay the occasional speeding ticket. In addition to the 99 events, you can also find collectibles around the city, including free parts, in quotes, because you're just stealing them off the back of a truck. And there's also snapping pictures at certain locations or doing a donut in a flare-marked area for reputation. There are also activity collectibles, making a collisionless run quickly on a set course, or hitting a drift target score around a corner. You can discover icons for these collectibles on your minimap when you're close, and you'll generally pull up and hit R1 to activate. Your main map, accessed via shortcut up on the directional pad, only shows you ones that you've completed, whereas your minimap doesn't show them if they have been completed. I'm not sure why we couldn't have had a colored icon for events discovered but not completed, and another color for those discovered and completed. I didn't see too much benefit overall in seeking out these collectibles, as there isn't even a PlayStation trophy for completion. Now, I don't believe you can play Need for Speed offline, as every time you start the game it connects to EA servers. It seems like up to about 10 other players would be in my world at any given time, and when you start any of the game's events, you have the option to send out an invitation to all with the click of a button. You can also challenge other players when you meet them in the streets. Since it is online though, there is no pause, which can be frustrating in the mazes of Ventura Bay when you're being chased by cops and you'd like to use that time to get to your next destination. Just trying to get to that large map screen and setting a new waypoint keeps your car moving forward with the full screen GPS blocking your vision. Most of the streets feel like those puzzles you used to do in those activity books as a kid where it looked like a big pile of spaghetti and you had to follow a string all the way through it from one side to the other. I mean, freeway access isn't obvious, and the GPS, even when set, often puts you in the opposite lane against oncoming traffic for no reason. Then you take ramps the wrong way exclusively because the city just doesn't seem to be laid out to make sense. This sort of ties into the strict criteria by which you can restart an event if you didn't win it. So let me give you a scenario. You have a 5-mile race, and you get ganked by traffic in the last quarter mile. Before you cross that finish line, you have to hit the options button and then select restart event. Now, if you're neck and neck and trying to give it that last push, and then you lose, but you've crossed the finish line, you get to drive back the 5 miles to the starting point. But if you have cops chasing you during the event, then you can't restart until you lose them either. The play area for Need for Speed seems significantly smaller compared to other open-world racing games. I mean, there's still a decent amount of ground to cover though, and you especially feel that when trying to get to new events that popped up, or going to the diner or bunker or trailer for another cutscene to open more events. The only place to which you can fast travel is the garage, where you store and upgrade your cars by clicking on the touchpad and clicking return to garage, which means if you fast travel there, you're often 6 miles away from the next place you want to be. There are a couple dozen cars available for purchase in Need for Speed, and each have a few different stats showing things like the time it takes to go from 0 to 60 and the horsepower. You can store 5 cars in your garage at a time, and 5 in an off-site warehouse transferred by the click of a button. As mentioned, you open part availability as you go up in reputation levels, and then you purchase parts with cash that then get opened for that specific car only. The free part collectibles also go to one car, and are assigned when you pull them out of your inbox. There's a pretty heavy paint and wrap editor for vehicles, letting you express yourself, as they say, through your car's build. There's also a performance setting to shift your tire pressures between grip and drift, but I didn't really find any of that necessary. Now, it can be kind of difficult to determine what car you might need for the events you have, as those events are simply labeled easy, medium, and hard. With the options set up the way they are for car purchases, it's difficult to tell the difference in handling, so why would you not just buy the highest horsepower, and will that be enough? Cars do show damage, but as far as I could tell, there wasn't really a penalty to performance. Serious wrecks will stop gameplay, give you a blurred cutscene and a 5-second delay, and then just send you on your way. Stopping through a gas station or returning to the garage will repair all that damage. If you speed in front of a cop, you'll have a little while to pull over and pay your fine, but if you don't do it fairly immediately, the text will then state that you're resisting arrest, and a counter will start and heat will be gained, increasing their tenacity to block and pull you over, the punishment for which is just a full fine and restarting from the garage. Now, there's one set of events from a mystery quote-unquote outlaw event giver that brings a lot of police activity during the race. It's relatively easy most of the time to break line of sight in later cars, and while it does make it less annoying as often as speed traps occur, the cop AI isn't the greatest. One of the events was to get away from the cops after a 5-minute chase in a low horsepower car, which ended up just being a long and boring wait while watching a cop Austin Powers his way down the street. There are 3 or 4 such events that do require specific cars from the garage like that, and it's particularly frustrating to discover that after you've already made the journey to the starting line. One key criteria of a good racing game to me is the solidity of the racer's artificial intelligence. I think the first game I truly discovered the Rubberband AI, or catch-up factor, whatever you want to call it, was Midway's boat racing game Hydro Thunder. This principle makes the AI stay close to you, and if you make them get in an accident, their vehicles can just exceed the laws of physics to be back on your tail and give you a continuing challenge. You know, like how recent Mario Kart games give a blue shell pretty much exclusively to the people in the back, while you get green shells in the front. This catch-up factor seems a constant struggle in Need for Speed, where at some points I was just wishing half the events were just time trials. One of the final races pits you against every main NPC in the game, and one of the cars you've even driven for an event that I know didn't have the top speed of my current car. While I'm flying down the highway at 225 miles per hour, he could just catch or hang with me. One of the drifting modes is called Drift Train, where you go out with a crew and your position to their proximity gives you a point multiplier. I mean, they even make a comment not to trade paint, but don't get me wrong, I don't underestimate the challenge it would be to program good racer AI this day and age. And I couldn't do better myself, but just saying be prepared for some frustration. I do applaud developer Ghost and EA for the free extra content they've been providing to support this game. There's a set of 15 races called Eddie's Challenge, a prestige mode where you do previous events again with tougher time targets, and there are also 3 daily challenges you can complete for bonus reputation. Those accumulate in a month for even more bonuses. Finally, there is an additional multiplayer feature called Speed Lists, where you can queue up and join races based on speed, style, or a combination of the two, and work for score points to advance your multiplayer rank. While I do feel that the Forza Horizon games are a bit more solid in nearly every aspect, the lack of sales pitches every time you turn around to buy content, and instead getting bonus content, is quite the breath of fresh air. Alright, I've held off long enough about it. Need for Speed features full-on live-action cutscenes, where you view all the action from what seems like a GoPro attached to someone's nose. You drink beer, you fist bump at every opportunity, and it's a bit strange watching the way some of the actors look at you. I'm not sure where this got considered to be a good idea. I guess maybe in budget, it's cheaper to hire actors and put them in a garage or diner. Cheaper than it is to fully digitize them after having hired the actors to do it all anyway. And maybe it's just me personally that has issues with it because it flashes me back to the Sega CD days where this type of video was considered groundbreaking or whatever, but it just doesn't feel right. It's not to say they don't do some neat transitions in the garage between your digital car and when the acting starts, but sometimes it's just creepy. I actually felt embarrassed at a couple of points for these actors, and I'd be surprised to see any of them move on to bigger and better things. Okay, so I looked them up on IMDb, and okay, I'm wrong. Fine, whatever. Also, I'm not one of those people that thinks we need a female protagonist in every game, or that every work of art has to have a rainbow of multiple cultures and skin tones to round out the cast. But in Need for Speed, we clearly have a male silent protagonist that we're supposed to be assuming the identity of. And some of the females even refer to you as, quote, big guy. This could be alienating to some players. I mean, I understand it's filmed and 2 takes based on your gender would be a bit much, but that point wasn't lost on me. While I think you'd probably be better served playing Need for Speed Rivals or Forza Horizon, if you're looking for some open world, stylish online racing with a focus on drifting, a decent event variety with the core game taking about 20 hours and some good bonus content, and dozens of collectibles to find, and you don't mind some frustrating AI, the inability to pause and easily restart events, long travel time between events, and some awkward cutscenes, then Need for Speed might be right for you. Rated as an open-world racing simulation game, Need for Speed hits a 64 out of 100, with 50 being an average game. This is Jiro for Umbra Games. Thanks for watching. Don't forget to hit subscribe if you'd like for more attempted weekly reviews, or follow me on Twitter @Umbra Games.